If I've learned anything from my sleep paralysis demons, it's that good things come in threes. Same is true with guitar. 3 chords and the truth. That's probably something you've heard before. All you need to know are 3 chords and the truth, and you can play whatever on guitar. This is not completely inaccurate, but I had a performance last week. I was in Indiana at Sweetwater Guitar Fest, and my friend Mia and I played a cover of a kind of viral trending song called Harpy's Hair. I'll link you to it in the description if you guys want to check this out. But basically we were just going to do an acoustic guitar, violin, solo jam over a very static chord progression. The whole chord progression is B minor, D major, G major, G major again, right? And to do that for 3 minutes at kind of like a higher tempo, it's kind of like, all right, what am I going to do here? So today we're talking about the 3 truths about 3 chords in the truth that you can maybe incorporate in guitar playing. Because I was looking back on the footage and I was like, oh wow, actually, I do a lot of different things that I subconsciously do at this point just to maybe keep, well, I don't want to say a boring chord progression, but like a simple chord progression interesting over the duration of an entire performance, right? So let's talk about truth number 1, just learning the open chord versions and different things you can do with the open chord things. And then we'll kind of progress a little further after we do each one, right? So let's go through the chords. B minor. Now I want to focus on just the middle 4 strings at first, for this first truth, alright? So this isn't even a bar chord the way that I'm playing it. It's the 2nd fret on the A string pointer finger, 4D and 4G with my ring finger and pinky, and then my middle finger has the minor 3rd of B minor, which is a D, 3rd fret on the B string, okay? So the chords are going to be here. We can go D major, you know this one from the bottom up, 2, 3, 2, open D, and then keep your ring finger there and play the G major like this, okay? There's a reason for this, other than it being the superior way to play G major. If you watch my channel, you know that we don't subscribe to that 3rd fret on the high E string here for the most part. But that's the whole progression, okay? Now, I do think it's a little tricky going from B minor to D major quickly, all right? Again, the tempo of the song is like this. So that to that is actually a pretty, I would say it's a pretty high intermediate move to like hit it on time. So we're going to talk about maybe some easier ways to do it. Now, no matter where you are on the guitar fretboard, there is a way to make things easier. And this is something I wished I learned earlier, but basically it's like, all right, I'm kind of trapped. I've decided that I'm going to start this chord progression out with this kind of traditional B minor. Even though I'm not barring the high E string, E is a note in this key. So I can have it ring out, it's not a big deal. I'm just not aiming for it, right? I'm making that easier on my hand right off the bat. Now, how can I make this even easier? The hard part from going from here to here is you almost kind of have to use your wrist as a hinge to get your middle finger up to the high E string, right? So again, not impossible. You could do this, just drill it a little bit. But here's the thing, why are you doing a D chord the way they told you to do a D chord, right? If I've learned from my sleep paralysis demons, there's no one way to do anything, right? They're very wise in that. They've been around for many years. So why don't we use what we already have on here? My middle finger's already on a D note, which is in that chord, and my pointer finger's already on the 2nd fret of the A string. So why don't I just do this? And then if I want to, I get to add a bonus to getting my pinky on the high E string to get a higher A on top of that chord, okay? Now, this is somewhat fundamentally changing the chord. I don't have an F sharp in it, necessarily, but because the whole chord progression repeats, the F sharp is somewhat implied, okay? So we're essentially implying the major 3rd in this chord without actually playing it, right? So here's the difference. B minor, or negligible difference, okay? Another thing that I actually do a lot is if I really want that a high E string, I'll just kind of like start here. And then I'll just have my pointer finger jump back and forth, right? Sometimes I'll find myself in a bind. It's like, all right, well, if I want to hear that color of the chord, I'll just abandon that G string right there and just hop to the top. Or maybe I want that high A on there, right? the point of this part of the lesson is that there are always going to be options, right? If you're struggling hitting a chord change on time or something, think about potentially doing alternative ways to play these chords, right? None of them are better, none of them are worse, they're just different. And I think going from this B minor in a high-speed situation to either this D, essentially power chord, because notice you're going to be a D, an A, another D, and another A. So it's really just power chord. But it makes it a lot easier, and then you go back to the G, all right? Now, the next thing I want to talk about, which is still in the same vein here, is the rhythm. We really have to understand the rhythm of the guitar to know what we're allowed to do as accompanists, right? So when I first heard the song, I was like, all right, I'm trying to get the vibe of the song, and I'm hearing like a, which isn't totally uncommon. Whether there's like a drum kit in a song you're trying to cover or something like that, there is an underlying rhythm behind anything, right? And it's your job as an acoustic guitar accompanist to understand how to communicate that rhythm with your strumming or your finger picking or anything like that, right? So when I hear that, I can turn that into a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4. And again, the downstrokes are the numbers and the upstrokes are the ands in between. Right? Now what I'm hearing more than anything is the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2. That 3. That 3 is the magic. That's what's driving everything forward. That would be like a snare drum on a drum kit that's playing along with it, right? A lot of times maybe like the kick is on the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and the snare is on the 3, okay? So the way that we can try to communicate that information is maybe I want to strike the low strings on the 1 and get the attack of the higher strings on the 3, okay? So if I'm staying on this B minor, you can hear that 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. And now I'm kind of getting this rhythm in. You can kind of hear that steady beat, right? And that's hitting the guitar as you strike the strings, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and low, high, low, high, low, high, low, high. Add that to every one of these chords. And I think once you add a little bit of that physicality to your strumming, it's actually way easier to lock into the tempo and the groove of the song, right? So, speaking of tempo and grooves and great music, we're talking about the sponsor of today's video, DistroKid, which is really supplying the greatest tempo and grooves all over town. If you haven't used DistroKid and you want to put your music online, this is the only service that you're allowed to use. It's the best one by far. It's so inexpensive compared to its competitors, and it's just way better all the way around. I've been a DistroKid user ever since they actually came out, and they've also now been a huge sponsor of my channel for a long time. So if you click the affiliate link in there, you actually get a percentage off, and you can upload unlimited tracks to DistroKid. It doesn't even have to just be music. You can just troll your friends and be like, hey bro, I'm just trolling you right now on Spotify. And you can send them a link to that. And it's really kind of like one of the funniest things. You use that at your own discretion. That's not what I'm telling you to do, but that's an option that you have with the perfect service of DistroKid. Gives you a lot of reporting. I did a video last month about how I actually made thousands of dollars off a viral TikTok sound that I would not have even known about if not for DistroKid alerting me to it. So I'll link you to that too, because that's actually a really super interesting story that I am eternally grateful of DistroKid for helping out with. So yeah, if you have any ambitions of ever putting your music online, getting it on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, all that stuff, definitely check out DistroKid in the link below. So now we're going to start adding more stuff to that rhythmic count. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and. Okay? So we're coming from that B minor. Okay? That's what we want to go for right now. I'm hitting that 1 count, just the lower thing. Maybe I'm getting the root note, maybe I'm getting the root note and it's 5th, the A and the D string. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and like that, right? Or you could really aggressively mute it. And again, that's faster. But the point is just to really be able to get that groove in your groove vocabulary, just so you can kind of get that anytime. And then the chord changes becomes so much easier, right? And we're still on the open chords right now. So there's a lot of things that you can do. And especially once you start kind of attacking the strings a little more with confidence, then you have so much more. I feel like you have a lot more play in your chords. Maybe if you finger a note incorrectly or something, you can hide it a lot more with the percussive nature of it. So one thing that I learned just from playing a lot, and something that I see maybe beginner intermediate players not do as much, is they don't play with confidence, right? And I think there's a huge difference between playing with confidence and playing with a heavy hand. I see a lot of players who might be really working on stuff, and maybe they don't have that technique down, and they're hitting the strings hard enough. I feel like I play with like a pretty light to medium hand. I'm not really hitting the strings so hard, but I'm hitting it very confidently, right? So don't be afraid to dig into it a little bit, right? This is a Martin D18. This is I consider a very valuable guitar, and I'm by no means afraid of really digging in. You're not going to hurt your guitar just by kind of like digging in and confidently hitting those notes, right? Those beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and D, G. And the nice thing about going from maybe like a high D like this into a G is usually most people are so comfortable with the G major chord that's one that's easier to get. I do think that going from a B minor to a D major is a little trickier, but you can always jump off ship and then get back to a G pretty quickly, because for most people it's one of the first chords that they learn and get good at, because again, it's the people's key, right? However, this is in the key of D major or B minor, the way you want to look at it. It's the same key, essentially. Check out the Patreon for more information on that. But it's really helpful to learn how to number these chord progressions, which is going to bring us to the next part of this lesson, the second truth, if you will. Numbering this chord progression, it would be thinking in the key of D major, a 6, 1, 4, 4 chord progression. Right? If we're talking about D, B minor is D, E, F, G, A, B. It's the 6th note away. Again, with the sharps, it's D, E, F sharp, G, E, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, it's the 6th note away. And then we go to the 1 chord, D major, and then D, E, F sharp. G is the 4 chord. All right? So 6, 1, 4. Now, why that's important is because it opens up the fretboard once you think numerically into maybe shapes that you'll become more familiar with, right? So the second truth of this lesson is we're gonna add extended chords into closed shape positions, right? If you've ever seen any of my playing or music, you know it's eventually coming here. So one way to make things more interesting over the long haul of a 3 to 4 minute performance that uses the same chords is to use different voicings and different extensions of the same chord. So now when we're starting with B minor here, any minor chord, no matter what key you're in, whether it's the 2, 3, or 6 chord in a key, you can always turn that into a minor 11 chord. In fact, I urge you to experiment with minor 11 chords. I think these are kind of like the secret sauce of almost any cool sounding chord progression, right? So again, before I teach the chord, here's B minor. Essentially the same chord as far as it being what's holding down the 6 chord part of it, but it has definitely a different sound, right? Now again, the root note is the exact same note on a different string. Your middle finger is going to hold down the 7th fret of the E string, and then your ring finger and pinky are going to bunch together just like they would here, but now they're kind of taking different duty on the same 2 strings, but on the 7th fret. So now I've got the B on the E string. I'm just kind of muting the A string with my middle finger right there, and then getting the D and the G string right there, and then my pointer finger is grabbing the 5th fret on the B string. Okay? Now, you could also do this as just a regular B minor 7, either all the way down or like here, but again, minor 11 is where it's at, guys, especially when you're going 6 to 1. Okay, so B minor to D. No matter where you are, this is going to be a move that you could do. Maybe it's a major 7 chord, maybe it's a major triad, but I'm going to keep the same thing here, the 6 chord B minor 11, and I'm going to make a slight adjustment. My pointer finger is going to go from the B string to the A string, same fret, and then my middle finger is going to jump to the 6th fret of the G string, and then my pinky is just going to go down a string, right? So it shares a lot of similarity. 6 chord, 1 chord, okay? B minor 11, D major 7. Then we're going to go to the 4 chord. We can either go back to regular G, because we always end up here anyway, or we can do another voicing, which, this is a G major 7 chord voicing, but think of it as a different way to play off the B minor, right? Once I started thinking about extended chords being almost like a combo of 2 chords, two separate chords, it really opened up my mind to how the fretboard works, right? What I mean by that is like, we started with B minor. But what if we just don't have a B as the root note, and that's a G? Now we have a G major 7, which is really kind of like a G major and a B minor combined, because each of those are 3 notes. They share 2 notes. Now we have a 4-note chord, G major 7, G, B, D, and F sharp. Would be how we play that, right? So, see, B minor, here. We could even do it different ways to play the same chord progression, essentially. But I want to go from this one to here. And then now we can add these new chord voicings into the rhythm that we did earlier. B minor, 11, D major 7, G major 7, and G open, which is different than B minor, D, G. You see what I did there? Going from that G chord here, maybe if I use my middle finger too, I can lead the way into that B minor 11. There are so many different patterns and kind of shortcuts that you can start developing a roadmap with once you start adding a few extended chords in at a time. Again, it doesn't have to be every time, right? Maybe I just don't like getting from this B minor to that D, so I'll just get from here. And then I'm just kind of moving around in different ways, and that opens up a lot of different things, right? So that's just the second truth, is kind of trying different chord voicing, different chord progressions. Again, they don't even have to be extended chords. You could play a straight up bar chord, B minor, D, G. In fact, a lot of times that can be even more helpful, because now I have complete control of the chord. I'm not using the open strings to help me out. So now, or extended chords. Now, especially when you're just basically in charge of the entire rhythm section, which I was in that clip that I linked to in the description, you have a lot of freedom to maybe do more extended chords, right? I found myself doing a lot of just solo acoustic guitar accompaniment. Now, if you're in a band or something, maybe you want to simplify the chord voicings or just play like a little higher on top. Again, all of these kind of have different uses that you might surprise yourself in using depending on the context in which you find yourself. But the next third truth is going to be using these to maybe make a little more of an interesting, I don't want to say flashy, but maybe a little more fluid, exploratory type way to play these things, right? So for example, let's take this up a notch, right? So here's the regular level 2 version. Now, see, I was kind of like, there's like a lot of things that you could do, and I think it's worth it just to maybe take a few minutes to talk about some of the things that I like to do, and then you can take it or leave it. You know, maybe incorporate some of these things into your bag, or just give you some new ideas. Beautiful thing about the 6th chord. In any key, it's the relative minor. Okay, what does that mean? That means this is where the minor pentatonic scale lives and breathes, right? So when you're in this shape, you can think of, even though I'm playing 7, skip the A string, 7, 7, 5, think of the available notes as being 7 all the way down, and then minor pentatonic. 7, 10, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 10, 7, 10. So from here, one thing I like to do is a little double stop where you play 2 notes at a time. What's really cool about having your ring finger and your pinky bunched together, you can kind of get this 9th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret, A and D string, 7th fret, A and D string. So now I can go. Okay, so that's a little rhythmic thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Alright? And then I jump. That leads me back. Bum, 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 bum. To the D. And then right here, now it's like, alright, what can I do here? I can do maybe something around this D major chord. I know I'm in the key of D, so what do I have available to me? I have the whole D major scale. So maybe one little thing I could take from this, I know that like, alright, this is D major scale 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 4, 6, 7. Or if you learn 3 notes to string, that's probably even more valuable. But let's just take this. It's like, I know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 4, 5. This is a little box looking shape, right? 5, 7, 5, 7. That's available to me that I can just, all that is I'm hitting the chord. 5, 7, 5, 7. The important thing is when you're accompanying is to never let your strumming hand stop, okay? Now maybe you can stop hitting the strings to kind of like add some drama. See how those kind of things played off each other, right? B minor 11, backwards, double stops. D major, 1 up through the scale. Then G. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about that 4 chord here, right? So, if you think of the rhythm of the song, I'm trying to keep the rhythm locked in, right? So the violin player can really just explore. By the way, Mia Asano, incredible violin player. Go follow her on all platforms because she's an absolute superstar, amazing. But she's locking down the rhythm or the melody, and at the end of the bar, the measure, there's a little bit of room for the guitar player to shine, right? So if we talk about the melody, it's like all that empty space. That's yours. That's yours to experiment with. So if we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and D, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and G, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and... See, I made the most of it while keeping it busy. I kind of went off that 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe I just take that last 4 count. Now this is something that you can break it up into different counts, right? A count within a count, the inception of counting. So we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. We can think of that as counting to like 8, right? One thing that is a cool way to break up 8, instead of just 4 and 4, is 3 and 2, right? So for that G, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and, right? It still ends up being 8. Now if I was doing the whole thing like that, putting the accents on a 3-3-2 count instead of like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 totally changes the vibe of the song, which is something you should be able to do because it's super helpful. But this isn't what I want to do right now because that, like I said, totally changes the vibe of what we're going for. But having it in your back pocket is a great thing that you can add to the end of something when you have a little more space. So right now, I'm going to go through the typical kick snare on 1 and 3. But then listen for when I switch into like a 3-3-2 count, right? I'm kind of switching that end of that. And then once you kind of start internalizing that rhythm, then you can start doing more things with it, right? So don't get too busy, but still show people that you know what you're doing. Show them that you watch the Sean Daniel YouTube channel and you have all these skills at your disposal. Last thing I want to talk about is connecting the dots. We're going 6, 1, 4, and then back to 6. So we got this 4 to 6. We're just gonna skip the 5. We're just gonna walk by and not talk to him. I'm not gonna stare in horror at that third sleep paralysis demon. You wanna give people their due, right? Show them you appreciate them. Thank them for stopping by. Maybe just hit that A7 on the way to B minor 11, right? So if this is the 4 chord and this is the 6 chord, right in between, a step higher than the 4 chord, a step below the 6 chord, we have a dominant 7 chord, the 5 chord. Okay, a really great way when you're playing these chord voicings to do that. That really lines up with this kind of voicing right here. A7, 5, 4, 5, 6. So I'm gonna hit that in between. That's something you can always do, right? If you have more time, you can actually just play all the chords in between, right? So we're going from a 6 to a 1 to a 4. Well, I could actually play a lot of stuff in between 1 and 4. I can lead into it. I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? In that case, it would be D minor to E minor, F sharp minor, then G, or like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. See how that worked? 2 chord, 3 chord, 4. Or I could do it higher on the neck. And again, it's still keeping the vibe, but I'm just like taking those numbers and playing in between. I could descend down to it. I could go 1, like something like that, where it's like, let's go from the 1 chord to the 7 chord, to the 6 chord, to the 5 chord, to 4, right? That's always kind of tricky, and that's why you should join the Patreon, because then you can kind of see the entirety of the 7, 6, 5, 4, right? Let's see if I can do that in time. So what I did right there is like 5, 7, 6, 5, 1. And again, that's going a little too busy for even my taste, but it's stuff that you can do because now you are armed with all the truth about 3 chords and the truth. And the sneaky thing about 3 chords and the truth is never just 3 chords. You can combine 2 of those 3 chords to make an extended chord. You can start bringing in other chords, but essentially the backbone of the entire thing is 3 chords. And that is the truthiest thing that I could ever tell you and communicate through this, what has become an incredibly long video. So thanks for watching. Thank you to DistroKid for sponsoring. Like I said, there is an affiliate link in the description that also saves you money, helps me out a lot. And then go show Mia some love and sign up for the Patreon. Thanks for watching. Talk to you guys soon.